Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
Did you guys know that it was, with the humidity today, 110 Fahrenheit? At
Yes.
one point?
Yes, because I was out for 4 hours of it.
Why were you outside?
Mika wanted to go play hockey at the outdoor rink at the Crack If Stupid this morning, and then I had to do a crap ton of yard work today. It was great.
That's when you tell her that you don't do that during a heat wave, and that's life.
Yeah, we didn't last very long there, so it's all right.
You actually were out doing yard work today.
Yes.
What's wrong with you?
No, thank you.
So many things.
Yeah, Evan says that. He just got back from the golf course.
Oh, I didn't enjoy the heat at all. I've gone through like 4 golf clubs in 2.5 weeks.
I've had the same one for like 4 years.
Mine is a darker shade of blue now. It makes no sense. It's disgusting.
I don't do well in the heat. I was telling you guys earlier about a frustrating day I had at work, and then I was just downstairs. I'm like, why don't I feel any better? And I was like, it's hot. It's hot inside and it's hotter outside, and I can't do anything about it. We finally went for a walk at like 8 p.m. and it was only maybe like 90 degrees. And
there's no escape unless you have air conditioning.
No, not at all. Anyhow, somewhere closer to the sun than we used to be. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. I am what's left of Ryan Hanna.
I am partially Brad Crisco.
And I'm the melted version of Evan.
All right. Yeah, the NHL made a little bit of news since the last time we talked.
Only a little bit.
In that they just casually said, we avoided a lockout. It hasn't been ratified yet, though, right? Or has it been ratified? No, it hasn't been ratified.
I believe so.
Oh, okay. Well, Evan will look that up while we discuss it. So the new CBA was agreed to between the NHL and NHLPA, and it entails a CBA extension as well as details regarding return to play. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the specific points within the CBA, return to play, the schedule and everything. We'll be doing a prospect profile. We'll be getting back to those in this episode, and then we'll head over to overtime. For those who are wondering or who haven't listened yet, we do have our interview with Doug McLean last episode, which was a really fun one. So, posted clips of the episode on YouTube, as well as obviously the full episode is available wherever you get your podcast. The interview is also on YouTube. So, go check that out. Appreciate all the feedback you guys had. I'm glad you guys enjoyed Dougie's, candid nature so much. I went back and listened to what he said about, Ovi. It made me feel so bad.
What would the NHL look like today?
Regardless, the CBA. So we've heard and seen the same jokes a trillion times on Twitter. It's not original what I'm about to say at all. But of course, all it takes is a world-ending, a worldwide global pandemic to avoid a lockout for the first time. Because right now, what we had gotten used to as hockey fans was the habit of, there's a CBA deadline coming up. There's almost definitely going to be a lockout.
Death, taxes, et cetera,
Yeah, except this time it wasn't death and taxes. It was...
because it took actual literal global death to avoid it.
Well, it's not... It's not anything to scoff at, right? And I think the reason this happened this way is because a lot of these issues or points of contention that they would have just been kicked down the road, right? Like, the NHL players would like a lowered escrow rate, and the NHL itself would like a controlled cap and things like that. And those things were decided one way or another by the fact that the league isn't getting any revenue right now. So, as fans, preemptively, it's an exciting time. Like, we don't have a lockout to look forward to. We don't have to have that lingering over us. We don't have to deal with all the stupid drama and optics and, proxy wars and outright wars that happen in the media. And we just get to know what's happening for the years to come in the NHL.
So couple things here. Obviously, the fact they got a deal done is good, because everything's bad. This is not good for the health of the NHL. It's good for the fans because no lockout. We're happy. As much as we Red Wings fans are happy that the salary cap will barely be going up over the course of this CBA, again, for the league as a whole, bad, not good. This is not healthy. The real reason that they came to an agreement here was because they looked at the revenues, they saw everything that was going on, they looked at the projections going forward, and then you know that GIF that circulates on Twitter pretty regularly of Timon and Pumbaa just screaming at each other? That's pretty much the NHLPA and the NHL here. They're just panic screaming. They don't know what to do. So they're just like, yeah, let's just do this and pray it works out for the best. And now we have labor peace for however many more years. And let's hope they find a way to salvage some money so that we don't get a lockout for the exact opposite reason at the end of this one.
Pretty much what happened. Yeah, go ahead.
It sounds like the voting for the players opened up yesterday, and that voting will close tomorrow. So that's when they'll announce what the decision was on the voting. So
it's currently Thursday night as we record this.
Yeah. So in typical fashion, the news will break once this episode drops.
And that's all right. We'll
as is
cover
tradition.
it on Sunday. Yeah. Essentially what happened was Brad and I are the NHL and NHLPA screaming at each other, and Evan is COVID-19, making us come to an amicable decision.
Yes.
Evan's just COVID-19 in general.
Yes.
That's why you're so hated.
Yes.
Some key details. So we'll go over some key points of the proposed CBA. Again, hasn't been ratified yet, but I would imagine with how quickly they agreed to it, it will be. It's a simple majority will, by all the voting members, will dictate whether it's approved or not. First of all, key dates of return. So training camps will open in 4 days, so on July 13th. And teams would have to arrive in their respective hub cities of either Edmonton or Toronto, because of those are the two hub cities that they've chosen. In the end, of course, by July 26th, games would hopefully begin by August 1st. So we're a few weeks out from real hockey games being played. And the way they're scheduling these is awesome, and we'll get to that in a little bit. If they are able to make these dates, they believe that the Stanley Cup could be awarded by the first week of October. I think they're planning for October 2nd or 3rd as the last possible date for the Stanley Cup finals.
But more importantly, the real Stanley Cup is the draft on October 6th.
Which is a Tuesday, I think. Was that what it was?
I don't even care. I'm taking that day off work.
yeah, that's going to be a quick take that day off work.
That is all I have to look forward to for the rest of this year.
So that's all provided they're able to meet these timelines. None of these timelines are going to be hard-coded into the CBA or any other kind of agreement, because anybody who tries to project anything in this world more than 6 hours away from where they are is stupid. So that's all under ideal circumstances. And then free agency, the new July 1st will be November 1st. And I believe they're doing away with the interview period before free agent frenzy.
They are. So now instead of the legal tampering, we'll just have the good old fashioned illegal tampering.
Yeah, which is funny. I don't really understand the rationale behind that. But then again, these separate points haven't been kind of fleshed out in full detail. So I'm sure there was some kind of reasoning for it. Whether it was they don't have the time to kind of facilitate that this time around, or owners and general managers didn't like it in general, that'll come to light, of course, over time. Opt-out rules. Any player can opt out of return to play this summer for any reason and suffer no penalty. There's not been written discussion or written confirmation about whether players who opt out would receive their share of the playoff pool. I would imagine not. Especially if it's non-medical, I imagine you wouldn't. And the playoff bonus pool was bumped from 16 million. It was doubled to 32 million. So, just as a quick summary, players who lose in the best of 5 playoffs, the qualifying round, they'll receive 20 grand, and the rates would go as high as 240 grand per player for the cup winning team.
Can we stop calling it the play-in round? They confirmed as part of this CBA that all the stats from this play-in round will count as playoff stats. But it's definitely not the playoffs. And a playoff team is not getting Alexis Lafreniere, but all these non-playoff teams and players are going to accumulate playoff stats. You know, in this non-playoff series. God, I hate this league sometimes.
Some goalie's going to have like, well, it's stupid. No one ever records like most amount of goalie wins in a playoff run because that's 16. But some goalie's forever going to beat it at 20. Or sorry, 19.
No, we won't get that fun. It'll be a Matt Murray, Marc-Andre Fleury situation, and the winning team's going to switch goalies halfway through just so we can't have that stat line. It's the NHL. We're not allowed fun, Ryan.
Teams with 2 goalies are benefiting from this because there's more games being played, the more likely that your hot goalie is not going to last as long. The Rangers are going to win the cup.
They could. It's 5 rounds. Shesterkin gets 2 rounds. Lundqvist gets 2. Georgiev gets 1.
No, I think Lundqvist gets the cup finals. It's too
poetic. He could. I didn't say which series they would get. I was just talking totals here. Georgiev will get the second round. Lundqvist will get the finals. Shesterkin will get the conference finals, etc.
It's so it's so funny, the reasoning. Like for people who are saying, look, there's no point in being upset about this. It didn't affect the Red Wings at all, practically. Yeah, you're totally right, man. Like, I'm not angry about it. I just laugh at the people who insist they cannot exist without having everyone agree with them that these are not the playoffs because of the playoffs. Oh, these games simulate the rest of the regular season? These stats should count for the regular season then. Plain and simple.
Yep. Ding, ding, ding. Very straightforward there. Nothing complicated at all.
No. And it's not extra games because everyone was missing at least 10 games, and at most they're going to play 5. So it's just like everyone had a few more games lost to injury this year. Put them into the regular season, but nah.
Like, selfishly, I'd rather these count as regular season statistics anyway, because how many players are chasing some kind of milestone or are sitting at like 48 goals or 98 points or et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's so much fun that could be had. Ovechkin and his Gretzky chase. If he goes off for 5 goals in this play-in round, I'd rather that be 5 more goals towards Gretzky than it is 5 more towards his playoff total that I couldn't even tell you.
Can you imagine Ovechkin's, however much he falls short of Gretzky's record?
Well, actually, Ovechkin's not going to play in this either way, but still.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, still, man, you ruined the hypothetical.
Yeah, well, whatever. There's still other guys. You could, David Pasternak's 2 goals away from.
Oh, yeah. I'm super worried about David Pasternak's legacy. That guy doesn't have too many more chances.
San Jose's not playing. I was going to say Marlowe's creeping up on the games played record. What else do we have?
We beat our own point. Welcome to the Wind Wheel Podcast.
Yep. Nothing is allowed to be fun, and I'm still so angry about this playoff round that I have to cheer for Toronto. I have to cheer for all these teams I hate. I hate this so much.
I'm deluded by the Heat right now. I'm back on. I hope Toronto loses and they're in the this pool just because of how absurd it would be. I will regret saying that, and a version of me 3 hours from now will slap myself for even thinking such a thing, but that's where I'm at right now.
No, Edmonton's my chaos team. I want Edmonton to win the Stanley Cup or Alexis Lafreniere. They are not allowed to do anything in between.
Edmonton is truly just like the good for hockey pick, right? Because, yeah, it's not fair at all, but what is in this life or this NHL draft lottery. And at least we get to watch the best of McDavid and Lafreniere then.
And Draisaitl, and Nugent-Hopkins, and Athanasiou, and Yamamoto.
You could not... can you imagine Lafreniere, Athanasiou, and McDavid? All you would have to say to Andreas is, hey, skate fast in a direction and it'll just shoot the puck off your skates.
Yeah.
That's it. Some other key points about the salary cap, which are, we talked about this last episode as well. So, and it will be an ongoing discussion, of course. The upper limit of the salary cap will stay flat, for 2020, 2021 at $81.5 million. It will stay there until hockey related revenue, climbs back up to, I think it's, let me look up the number here, $4.8 billion. So if it hits it quickly, the new upper limit or the new salary cap will be calculated through, actual hockey related revenue from 2 seasons ago to pull pre-COVID numbers, and then just do some kind of weird calculation with projected hockey related revenue. Whenever you see HRR, I know you want to think human resources, but that's hockey related revenue. And then minimum salaries will continue to increase from 700,000 to 770 or 750, and then 775 by 2024, and then 800 by 2025. So not world-breaking stuff here, and it's stuff we talked about last episode. This salary cap is going to, at a time when teams were planning for it to jump considerably within the next few years, it is now going to stay flat, or at least close to flat for the next little while. So even if hockey-related revenue climbs back up in a reasonable amount of time, you're not going to see a massive jump to like $92 million or anything like that. Like, it's going to take, I think, some time for it to have an appreciable difference. So teams that are in the hole are going to be in the hole. And of course, they'll have time to work with it. But I think the biggest opportunity is within the first season or season and a half for GMs with cap space like Steve Yzerman with the Detroit Red Wings to take advantage of that kind of thing.
Do you know who's going to have the biggest advantage with this, now that I think about it?
Who?
Seattle. Every team learned their lesson with Vegas. Don't get cute. Just let them take their player and be done with it. Some teams won't have that choice. Some teams will be like, I'd rather not give a first round pick to, if you're Toronto, say, a division rival like Ottawa or Detroit, I'd rather sell the farm to get Seattle to take a bad contract. So from a hockey fan perspective, this could be great because we could literally have Vegas 2.0. I'm not saying they'll be that good, but hey, maybe Seattle gets in the playoffs right away. Maybe they're a competitive team. A lot of early projections on this team look like they could be surprisingly good again. So again, you couple this with a global pandemic and the fact that teams will absolutely want to unload their bad contracts to someone. Hey, why not the brand new team? Because Lindy Ruff just got hired.
Oh, yeah.
The NHL doesn't learn from its mistakes. If we know anything, nothing changes. The NHL, everything in the NHL is an infinite loop of stupid and mediocrity. So Seattle's going to take on a lot of bad contracts, get a lot of picks, a lot of prospects, still somehow be good, and then reap the rewards of those picks and prospects for years to come.
I just realized that people on YouTube are going to notice that Evan's worn the same shirt, I think, for like 3 of the last 4 episodes.
Yep, it's the weekly schlepping shirt.
Is that your just post-golf shirt?
Yeah, pretty much. I just try to wear something super comfortable.
It's his Sunday red, except not on a Sunday episode this time.
Yeah. Be honest, Evan, do you wash that between uses?
No. Actually, it's not even a shirt. I'm actually shirtless right now. It's just this tan I have from golfing.
Like, what garment is that?
I was going to say, is it a
poncho? Can you imagine? Evan's just been wearing a poncho for the entirety of this podcast from home.
That'd be amazing.
I'd be way more entertained if it was a Snuggie.
We can get those on our store, can we not?
Probably not, man.
The store branded ponchos.
Every time. Okay, so we did a bunch of orders because the store is now taking more orders and things, and they're like, expect a delay of up to 20 to 30 business days. I'm like, that's next year. What do you mean 20 to 30 business days? Anyways, yeah, I think it'll be a while out till we get ponchos. Although we did just put up a very cool, on our little Hobbit door in the studio, a big Winged Wheel podcast vinyl. So in case Mel was wondering whether or not this room would have any semblance of livability outside of the podcast, the answer is no. So
what is inside of that Hobbit hole anyway?
It's the eaves of the house, because it's a 1.5 story. So it's between the roof and the walls. Yeah, which we learned, that area obviously doesn't get air conditioning, so it gets super hot. So if I store a lot of our stuff in there, if I have to open it, just a wave of hot air comes into the room, and it takes like another hour to cool it back down. Anyways, back to the CBA. I just remembered Seattle's going to probably have to get a guaranteed top whatever pick again, and that will happen in this upcoming draft, correct?
No.
Or is it? It's not the Shane Wright draft.
Draft. It's the Atu Ratti draft.
Yeah, but that's better because you don't want that to happen at the Shane Wright draft.
No, but now we live in a reality. The Red Wings could drop 4 spots.
Who cares? I don't care. I don't care anymore. They're dropping regardless. The Red Wings aren't drafting higher than 4th next year. Well, we're going to cry about 4th to 5th. No, let's get it through our heads now. There's no hope for the next draft lottery. It's over. All of it was done this year.
We could finish dead last and pick 5th.
Amazing. I hope it happens. I don't care. I don't give a shit. You can't care anymore, right? You can't.
I can only be hurt so much, so many times.
Even this year, we approached it as rationally as you could as fans and analysts and podcasters and talking heads, whatever you want to call us, dipshits. We approached it exactly how you're supposed to, and they still found a way to make it hurt. You cannot go into this with hope. If you are a fan of the Detroit Red Wings, do not have hope. I am warning you. Do not have hope. The NHL has shown us so many times that the decades of success that this team has had is being used as justification for cosmic hockey punishment, and any good that comes will come through Stevie's will and Stevie's will alone, and that is it. There's going to be no winning of draft lotteries. There's going to be no miracle pick that comes 5th overall. I talked about speed limits last episode. It's all happening the speed limit. Stevie's he has to do it his way, and that's it. So no, we're not getting Shane Wright. We're not getting Aturati. None of that. Pick your 4th favorite player. That's what we're getting.
Yeah, we are in the far right lane driving the speed limit.
Yeah. And we kind of ease towards the exit every time and then just go, shit.
Put our signal on way too early.
Way too early. And then it's another mile down the road. Anyways, I'm fine. Some other details. No trade and no move clauses will now finally travel with the player in the event of a trade. So even if a player is traded before a clause kicks in, I think that happened with PK. Was that Subban?
Yeah, Subban signed the extension with Montreal and was traded to Nashville before it actually kicked in.
Yeah. So sometimes players waive their no trade clauses, and technically when they do that, the receiving team of that player does not have to reinstate it. Sometimes they do it as an act of good faith, but they don't technically have to. And now with the new CBA, they do, which is good. It makes sense, and especially from a player bargaining standpoint. And then that also applies to no move clauses. European waivers have changed, so players who play in Europe will no longer require waivers to come back to the NHL, provided they sign their contract by December 15th. Would that have made a difference with Detroit and who's the goalie they signed that at the end?
Nabokov?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have made a difference.
They signed it before December, eh?
I believe so, yeah.
And of course, Olympic participation is permitted for the next 2 Olympics. So 2022 Beijing and 2026 is in Italy, Milan. So obviously they have to have an agreement with the International Olympic Committee to do so, but the NHL will allow it. Escrow is going to start pretty high at 20% and then slowly fade down, hopefully to 6% by 2025. And then there's boring stuff here about salary deferrals, blah, 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 repaying owners to make whole, et cetera, et cetera. So those are some of the key points. There was other stuff in there. I can't exactly remember what it was regarding players and their contracts. I believe conditional contract or conditional picks based on re-signing are no longer allowed.
What?
So if we trade Evan to the Steve Dangle podcast for a 3rd round pick that turns into a 2nd if he re-signs at the end of the year, that's no longer allowed.
Oh, so like if he ended up staying with the Steve Dangle podcast, then that year not. Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw that tweeted. I don't have that on my list that I made in front of me, and I can't remember if that's just because I took a bad notes or that didn't end up in the end. But it's
trying
because
to think of why that even mattered.
Well, because players ended up not getting re-signed by these teams because it always cost them, pretty significant draft picks, right? Like a team's not going to give up a 1st to sign a player where they were like pretty sure they wanted him, but you do give up a 1st for a player you're pretty sure you want to sign. So players lost a lot of bargaining power in that. These are things that like matter at the end of the day for the players, but not nearly as much as the insane escrow they're going to be paying to start. So that's why. Is 20 high compared to what they're paying now? I don't know the exact percentage of what they're paying now.
Special
guest appearance from Crystal. Do you have to go, Brad?
What's that?
Do you have to go?
No. No, I got it.
I can only deal with one of you and Evan doing that at a time. And Evan hasn't even clued into the fact that we're talking about him.
I'm reading about
He's here.
escrow right now.
Just in general?
No, I'm trying to figure out what the yearly payment in escrow has been.
Oh, okay.
Of course, it's not easy to find, because why would it be?
Evan spent this whole time trying to figure out why that French delicacy was relevant to the NHL before he realized it wasn't escargot.
No, these guys are rich enough. They can get their own.
So I'm reading what Craig Cousins wrote on The Athletic, and he also mentioned training camp for the next season is tentatively for around November 17th, with the next regular season schedule for December 1st. That is a fast turnaround. That is an extremely fast turnaround. And yeah, here's the thing. Teams will no longer be allowed to add conditions to trades that change the compensation if the traded player signs a contract extension with the new team. So that, yeah, the players do get some bargaining power back with that. I understand that.
I found a chart that's up to 2015, 2016, so it's not super relevant. And how the graph looks, it's a double bar graph. So on one side, horizontally, it's salary lost, and on the other side, it's refunded.
Yeah.
And it looks like...
Is it in percentage?
Yeah, so in 2009, the percentage of escrow lost was 1.1%, then followed by 2004. Sorry, I looked at 2.4 and said and thought 2010 and said half and half. 2010 was 2.4%. 2011 was 0.5. Not sure what happened in 2012, but it went up to 15%. And then it's been 10.2, 13, 13.
That was the new CBA, right? Second lockout.
Was that 2011?
When was that, Brad? Brad's
12,
dead.
13.
Yeah, so that's when
that's when
they
it
had
was.
the new agreed split to hockey-related revenue. So yeah.
Yeah, so players were getting a ton of money back. Like the highest they got back from escrow was 10% in 2010, and that's probably when owners were like, I don't like this. Because ever since that rebalancing, it's been 1.6, 3.8, 2, and 3% refunded to the players. So
they don't get a lot of money back anymore. So
it's like playing double taxes.
Yeah, all of these technical details are fun for the nerds, but if you're not into it, basically there's nothing earth-shattering. This isn't like the 04 lockout where, they changed the rules of the game or anything like that. These are a lot of back-end administrative things that matter a lot for hockey. I mean, you have to solve the current crisis that's happening now and create some kind of, like Brad mentioned, solid foundation for the future, or at least do your best to kind of avoid a better fight, or at the very, very least, which is a lot of what's happened now, kick the can that is those fights down the road. Good, because we've missed out on a lot of hockey now, and they are minimizing the amount of hockey that we're missing in the future. Because let's be real, if they let this go to a lockout, anybody who is still staying inside would come out to burn down NHL headquarters in New York, right?
Oh,
yeah,
easily. It would have made the Vancouver riots look like a birthday candle.
Honestly. So I'm happy common sense and rationality prevailed here. I read all this and I was like, kind of boring. That's good. Nothing earth-shattering. The amount of escrow the players are going to have to pay is enormous, but they worked all that out at the table. I'm not going to cry for millionaires. I'm not going to cry for billionaires. We have hockey. That's it.
But yeah, the players are losing money, but that provision the NHL threw in where the first star of every game now gets a free breadstick coupon from Domino's Pizza is really going to up the pace of the game.
Oh, is that why you're working out so much?
Yeah, buddy, you think breadsticks are good for you? No, I got to work off of those extra calories.
No, I meant to say to get in shape so you can even make the NHL.
To get breadsticks, yes, Ryan.
Why don't you just go to Olive Garden? It's unlimited breadsticks before you eat. Oh, you can't really
Canada.
You can't really go to Olive Gardens right now.
I can't cross the border, Ryan. Why do you tease me like that? That's just mean. If you're going to promise Olive Garden, deliver Olive Garden.
You can. You just have to say you're going to Alaska. Or is that only in the other direction?
I think I got a better chance of swimming the Detroit River than getting to Alaska.
People do it every year. I love the last guy who did it. He made it all the way across and halfway back before he got picked up by the Coast Guard. And they're like, "Why'd you do it?" He's like, My buddy said I couldn't. And they're like, but why'd you do it? He's like, my buddy said I couldn't, and I did it. And they put him in the paper, and when he was talking, he's like, can you please make sure that you say that I actually made it all the way there and then halfway back, and I could have done it if they didn't stop me. He almost went out again that night, actually, after the cops left.
What? They didn't arrest him or detain him? He entered a country illegally, and they're just like, go, you little scamp.
He touched the wall, and he swam back. He was back. I think they picked him back up on the Canadian side. It happens a lot.
That is amazing.
It's extremely dangerous. If you're in Windsor or Detroit, don't do it. There's a deadly undertow in some spots. Like, people die regularly, so please don't. But it's the stories are hysterical. I love it. Whenever people fish in there, I'm like, ooh, don't do that. Don't eat anything that you find in there, please.
I'm surprised you'd even be allowed to fish there.
Yeah, there's no laws. It's Windsor and Detroit.
True. Fair.
Anyways, that's the CBA. The pertinent points for the Red Wings here, the salary cap. And it looks like even after it's ratified, the dates aren't going to be solid. So we're going to work towards a range of dates as we prepare for these things and kind of talk about them. But keep in mind that this could all turn upside down, and it's not necessarily all upside down as in they start December 25th or like December 14th instead of December 1st. No, it could be they have to start like February 28th instead of December 1st. Like it really just depends on forces way beyond the NHL's control. So it's good to at least have a plan. And it's good that they understand that their plan may all go to shit, which if I'm a betting man, which I'm not, that's what I put my money on. So we talked about the dates of return to play. They basically want the play-in round to happen in 10 days, the first 3 rounds to happen in a maximum of 2 weeks, and then the Stanley Cup Finals to happen in a maximum of 13 days. The awesome part of this is that they want to split the East and West hub to pretty sure make sure that we have like unlimited, unfiltered, unadulterated hockey from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed.
If only I could enjoy that hockey.
They want games, I think this is Eastern time, 3 games a day in each of the hub cities, 12 p.m., 4 p.m., and 8 p.m.
No, that's like local time in Edmonton.
Local time in Edmonton?
So that means we would be getting 10 p.m., 6 p.m., and 2 p.m. would be the game times Eastern Standard Time. I'm not sure. Now, because they said, the one thing I wasn't clear on, so they said that those would be the time.
No, they're behind us. They're behind us where we are.
Yeah, so an 8 p.m. local game in Edmonton would be 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, you're working backwards. Sorry.
Yeah. So the one thing I wasn't clear on, though, is does that mean Edmonton and Toronto are both going to be running those time slots, or is it going to alternate? So are we going to have 2 games at 2 p.m. every day then? Or how does that work? Or is it going to be literally 6 games a day, or is it only 3 games a day? I wasn't clear on that. No,
it's 6 games a day, but there's a 2-hour time difference, right? So 12 p.m., 2 p.m., 4 p.m., 6 p.m., 8 p.m., and 10 p.m. That is a dream.
That is amazing, and I have a lot of vacation time coming up from work in the next couple months.
Honestly,
if it's essentially March Madness in terms of broadcasting and TV time, but hockey.
Hey,
March Madness is just game after game after game after game.
We never got to run our March Madness pool. I say we run a pool for each round. That's your job, Evan. That's your job, Game Master. That's Evan's role in this podcast, by the way. He's Game Master. That's why he doesn't talk so much.
No, I'm not doing that.
You sure are.
It literally says on his business card, the Vice President of Fun and Games.
Yeah, the President of Fun and Games is actually Mika. It used to be one of Brad or myself, but she wrestled control in a coup. So we're still trying to get power back, but she's a tough cookie to crack.
We haven't been able to figure out where she acquired the tank.
No. Yeah, that was surprising. Although, really, should we have been? Yeah, that kind of schedule is something that we would have dreamt up in some kind of hockey fever dream where we're like, yeah, this is the best version of the NHL we could ever ask for. And again, the stupid overused joke, the silver lining to the world ending is at least we get the kind of hockey that we have always wanted.
Until that ends, because the world ends. Let's get to the second round.
And funny enough, they've also told us what hotels the hub cities are staying or the teams in the hub cities are staying in. So Hotel X in Toronto is going to be Boston, Tampa, Washington, Philly, and Pittsburgh. So the teams that aren't involved in the play-in playoff. Wait, isn't one of them? Which one of those is Pittsburgh? Yeah, Pittsburgh is involved in the playoff.
Well, isn't that awfully presumptuous, NHL?
Royal York Hotel has Carolina, New York, Toronto, Columbus, Florida, the Rangers, and Montreal. I think to mess with Toronto, they should have just put Boston in there, just to psych them out. They're not playing, but they're there.
On the same floor. Alternating rooms.
Yeah. Can you imagine Toronto wins their series and they come back to their hotel room celebrating and standing there at the elevator just grinning as Brad Marchand? He's not saying anything. He's just grinning at them. He sticks his tongue out.
Kissing his imaginary ring again.
He licks the door handles to their hotel rooms.
He probably does that anyway, for being honest.
And over in the West, I guess a Marriott is St. Louis, Colorado, Vegas, Dallas, Edmonton, and Nashville. And then in another one, or the Sutton place is Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Arizona, and Chicago. Shame on the NHL for not just going all out and putting Edmonton with Vancouver, Calgary, and Winnipeg. But all in all, should the NHL live stream the hallways? Yes, or definitely yes.
Absolutely.
Should the NHL have a redemption bracket, which is mini sticks in the hallways with the teams that lose the play-in? Yes, or absolutely yes.
No, that should be the main. That shouldn't be the redemption bracket.
If the NHL does not generate 15 commercials from these hotel, like live candid views of the hotel hallways, they will be the NHL we know and love that cannot help themselves for their life's worth.
My favorite part about this is, you know how a lot of Canadian hotels will have like a Tim Hortons like built into the building somewhere, if not directly off of the lobby. I can't wait to see Ryan O'Reilly drive his hotel cart right into it.
They'll have to be closing that one down.
I wouldn't use that Tim Hortons even in a quarantine. Even if I had nowhere else to get my coffee besides like crappy hotel room coffee, I'd sooner make toilet wine in my hotel room than drink that stuff.
Yeah, I'll take that instant coffee powder they give you.
Yeah, I'll take that. $11 immediately charged to your card. Sorry, Gary. It's funny seeing the NBA players check into their hotels in Orlando. Was it Rajon Rondo put out a picture of his room? He's like, this is some Motel 8 bullshit or something like that. I'm like, that's a really nice hotel room. Like, that was a gorgeous suite. And like, is it the nicest hotel room in the world? No, I'm sure you can find better. But like, for a hotel room that's meant to house one person or two people, like...
He said it sucked?
Yeah. And I was like, man, you are in for a world of hurt. And like, the NBA is getting a lot more than what the NHL is getting, right? Like, they have way more money. And like, they had their meals, and everyone was laughing about their meals on Twitter because it all came in like prepackaged portions. And the only thing I thought was like, the food looks not bad. Like, it's catered to so many players, right? Like, it can't be amazing. And it looks worse because it's prepackaged. But I was like, I'm like a 7-foot tall NBA player. I need way more food than that. That food's like 600 calories. I need 3,000 in this meal right now.
I would pay good money to have someone prep my meals and put them in a bag and play it for me. My God, why are they complaining? This is exactly what I need in my life. But I understand the hotel thing. Because it was
a nice room.
No, I get where Rondo's coming from, because one time when I was in Las Vegas, I was staying at the Cosmo. And I just get like whatever poor person room like you pick a decent hotel and you just get the poorest person room you can get, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, where are you staying?
The Vegas way.
I'm staying at Caesar's Palace, and it's like the janitor's closet. You just don't tell anybody.
Yeah. But only $250 a night. But
they screwed up my reservation. So I was at the door, and I forget what it was. It was actually Super Bowl weekend in I forget what year. And so I'm like, okay, so just give me another room. And you could see like the panic setting in the woman's eyes behind the counter. She's like, uh-oh. She's like, okay, I'll be right back. And I'm like, oh no. Excuse me, miss. I don't know if you know this, but I'm from the east side of Canada. Like, I can't, like, you need to give me a room here. And then she comes back with the manager. So, sir, we don't have any regular rooms, but we do have a suite available. And like, my eyes got wide. I'm like, I can't afford that. I don't think she finished saying it. I'm like, I can't afford that. And she's like, no, like it's on us. And I'm like, what?
Sorry, we have to give you so much extra space.
I'm like, what? And so I'm thinking like normal hotel room, and then a suite's probably like twice as big, maybe an extra bed, and I might get like the little kitchenette set. I walk in to a wraparound suite that is bigger than my house. It was unreal. I can't stay in a hotel anymore. Nothing will ever live up to it. Overlooking the strip, just looking down upon the unwashed as I'm in my minor mansion.
The nice thing about those rooms is they give you a nice robe and slippers too, so you can really just live in the life of luxury for however long you're there.
It was the greatest 3 days of my life, and I'm not sure I left the room.
That would have been the only time it would have been like tangibly beneficial to be with you as a friend in a non-podcast capacity.
I 100% agree.
Like that's the first time I think in my life I've said, man, I wish Evan and I were there to experience that with Brad. I think even between the three of us, none of us would have left the room.
Oh, God, no. Like it was, I can't even describe. There was 3 couches in my hotel room.
Evan would have left with his pitching wedge onto the balcony.
He could have. I don't know if I could have hit a driver from one end to the other. It was a dogleg right, so it would have been hard to begin with, but still.
Do you shoot left?
No, I'm a righty.
And your drive doesn't hook to the right?
A little bit, Ryan, but I'm not like incompetent at the game of golf.
I'm not incompetent at the game of golf. I can hit it straight.
Ryan, my drive isn't just a 90-degree hook, okay? It's not a right angle here.
I swear, if the first 150 yards are dead on, it will still hook 90 degrees to the right at some point.
You're both right-handed?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a slice, not a hook.
Wait,
I hit a fade, not a slice, Evan.
Sorry.
Is this not what I'm trying to establish here?
Yeah, once you don't slice it, it's called a power fade.
I don't understand this bullshit game. Golf was made by bullshit rich people because they won life and they get to do everything that they want. So they made a game that nobody can win, and it's bullshit. That's
Ryan. I was one of those bullshit rich people in that bullshit rich suite. I can talk whatever the hell I want about golf for at least a little bit. Thank you.
Anyways, I'm excited to see the stuff that comes out of the hotel rooms, the endless hockey that we're going to get, provided that nobody ruins it. Actually, you know what? I talked about how NHL players are stupid, and like, look at Formula One. Formula One tested 4,000 people, and they all tested negative, and they were able to have their first race. So because they obviously had to cancel a lot of the races, like somewhere in China, somewhere in Brazil, like they had to obviously cancel those races. So what they do to try to fill out their race calendar, is they've done the same track more than once. So the first race was in Austria, and the second race is this weekend, also this exact same track in Austria. The last race happened on Sunday. Between Sunday and now, 2 of the premier drivers in Formula One traveled back to where they live in Monaco and went out in public and broke their bubbles and broke the quarantine and then came back to Austria.
Yes, the average athlete is dumb. The average person is dumb. George Carlin had it perfect. Think of how stupid the average person is, and then remember, half of them are dumber than that.
It's Austria. You live in Monaco. First of all, Monaco's just buildings. I'll just say it right now. Cool place. Yeah, definitely cool. There's stuff to do, but it's just buildings. Austria, you're in one of the nicest parts of one of the nicest countries in the world. Go for a freaking hike. There's a mountain next to the track. Next to the track on which you race.
You just take their helicopter to the top.
I'm not even like. Anyways,
but NHL,
no athlete is exempt.
Yeah, they're NHL players though, like if they break the quarantine rules that the NHL's imposed, they're like booted out for the rest of the playoffs. So
Yeah, let's see if they enforce it. I will be impressed if they enforce it.
I think they will enforce it, but I don't think there's any NHL player dumb enough to risk that. Well, in the playoffs, if this was the regular season, I would bet on half of them breaking it. But in the playoffs, every NHL player, no matter how dumb or arrogant or careless, turns into a robot. That's the special thing about the NHL playoffs.
At least 4 players / personnel from the Cup favorite St. Louis Blues, or at least one of the Cup favorite St. Louis Blues, tested positive after going to a bar.
I didn't say they were smart about their own health, but they are not going to risk a Cup run. There was no repercussions other than getting sick and possibly dying to the NHL player, but now there are repercussions to hockey. And as dumb as that sounds, that is literally more important than their own health to most of these players. And it sounds like I'm making a joke there. I'm really not.
The NHL actually, believe it or not, could use Mike Babcock's services here. Because if you need someone to lock down a team and make sure they don't get up to any bullshit through any means necessary, which is like also like mental and verbal abuse and manipulation, Mike Babcock would come in handy here, just scare them all straight. So I don't condone anything that he's done, but.
So what you're saying is the teams with the scariest coaches are going to be the favorites? Well, someone call up Allison. Congrats, Columbus. You're going all the way.
If only we can hope. Okay, we haven't done a prospect profile in a while, so before we get to overtime, I do want to do a prospect profile. And this, I didn't forget it. Yes, this prospect profile is not going to be a first round guy. So sorry for those who are hoping for that for this time around, but we will get to it. But this time it is going to be from North Bay in the OHL, Brandon Coe. Big man. Brad, kick us off.
Real big boy. Real skilled boy. Late birthday in his 3rd year of OHL eligibility. When you watch him play, your immediate thought is automatic first rounder. Big, decent skater. Great hands, super talented, great vision, plays physical, everything you want. In his 3rd OHL season is still less than a point per game. He is, he reminds me a lot of Riley Sheahan in a lot of ways, in the sense that you watch them and go, why aren't you good? Because
North Bay sucked.
They sucked. They were terrible, but he's been there for 3 years. The eye test says this player should be good. The everything else shows this player is not good. So is it a guy that you take a flyer on in like the 3rd round, maybe late 2nd round, and be like, okay, he had no help in North Bay, maybe, but I don't know. He's also tremendously inconsistent. Like Noah Gunler, we were saying, generally tends to take like every 4th game off. Brandon Coe takes 3 of those 4 games off, it seems.
Yeah, pinning down Brandon Coe is difficult. You definitely see the talent in him, but you would just imagine that through 3 years, there would be something more to say about his stat line. And I understand some analysts and some people who do scouting stuff don't really care too much about stat line. They take into account a lot more circumstance. But like Brad said, 3 years on that team, you'd want a little bit more consistency. And I don't know whether it's a lack of effort or if he's just not good enough or it's how bad the team is, or it's like he's a dependent player who doesn't drive his own line. Like he does play on the wing, and if he did drive his own line, then he'd be ranked a lot higher. But if he's played with the right centerman or the right line mates, is he going to explode? It's a difficult one. It's hard to resist the opportunity if you're like 3rd round, or even 4th round, maybe, depending on where this guy goes. And you see a guy who's 6'4", nearly like 195 pounds, excellent hands, good vision in the offensive zone, like knows how to play hockey besides just being big, and isn't like a debilitatingly bad skater by any means. That's tempting. But has he shown enough to warrant that risk? For me, 2nd round, I'm not sure.
It's certainly interesting to see how his stats would line up if he played on even a middling OHL team.
Yeah, throw him on.
I'm sure if he played for Ottawa, his numbers would be ginormous and maybe in the conversation for an earlier 2nd round pick.
It's worth.
But this is why he's rated where he is, because he's on a bad team. He doesn't light the world on fire, and there's a lot of unknowns. So that's kind of where you fall.
It's worth noting, though, this is his 1st year with North Bay where they didn't make the playoffs. So it's not like they've been a tire fire the entire time he was there.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Would he fit Detroit's draft profile? Yeah, he's huge and talented. For some reason, Steve Eisman's trying to build the Legion of Boom if last draft is to be taken into account. Like Elmer Soderblom says hi. He doesn't jump off the page for me. I understand it's an intriguing skill set, and I think there is definitely a shot for there to be a lot more beneath the surface, that you just need the right program and the right kind of line mates and development to get out of that. But I think that also rings true for a lot of these guys. Like, you don't just become an NHL level prospect and not all of these guys are total duds, right? Like, there's a stroke of luck and circumstance that comes with developing into an NHL player. Some players are so good, it doesn't matter where you go, you'll be good. And some players are actually, they never would have made it unless they were in the situation that they're in. And that's another layer of scouting players that it's really hard to predict. So I don't know. I say he doesn't jump off the page to me, but I also would hate to be the team that passed on him, that picked right before him, passed on Brandon Coe, and all of a sudden, the team that picks him has the next Anthony Mantha on their hands. He's not I don't think he projects to be as prolific of a shooter as Anthony Mantha, but you get what I mean in general. So, yeah, where do we think he'll go?
I'm going to say
I don't think he'll fall to the fourth round. I think he'll be late second, early third.
I'm going to say early third. I think a team will be too tempted. It's like that desperate girlfriend, but I can fix him. He's bad, but I can fix him. There will be a team that will do that. Absolutely. It might be the Red Wings.
Look, in your life, you should never pick a partner that you need to fix for them to be good. But if you're an NHL team and you're drafting a third round or later, that is absolutely what you should be doing.
Yes, 100%. You're drafting tools and going, we can do it. We have this. No, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Before, it was only like Detroit and like Chicago that could do that. Actually, not Chicago. But yeah, if teams have fleshed out development systems and they know, they're like, yeah, we've taken in huge guys who have consistency issues before, and we put on the right line mates, and look at these proof of concept cases. So I would not be upset if he was a Red Wings pick. Then again, you'd have a very short list of people where I would say, yeah, I would be upset if this guy was taken by the Red Wings past pick 32. Like, you cannot possibly be terribly passionate about those kinds of things. I remember being disappointed when they took Tuomisto, considering, because I wanted, Kaliev, and I wanted, Philly took him. He's a good shooter. Brink, yeah. Bobby Brink, and Detroit just missed out on them, and that's fine. And they took Tuomisto, who was like kind of off the board, and I was like, don't love that pick. And
yeah, but that was 35. That's a premium pick.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that was like my upper limit of what I possibly could, as someone who's already putting way too much stock into something I'm not a professional at, to be disappointed in. And even then I said, well, I'm not thrilled by this pick, but they know something that we don't, and they seem to be really high on him. And look, Tuomisto's doing great so far. So far. Please always take everything that we say about prospects and their development to so far. So if they took him in the third round or late second round, like, would not be upset about that for a second. Okay, Patreon, overtime? You guys want to do overtime?
Yes,
please.
All right, we're going to head over to overtime, which on this midweek episode of the Winged Wheel podcast is going to be Patreon exclusive. This is I've been naming them just stupid stuff, so this is the no lockout edition. To thank all of our Patreon supporters, because you guys are the reasons why we are able to keep the show going, especially through the lockdown, and we're almost back to hockey. Joe D'Elia asks, sup guys, quick hits. Movies you never get tired of.
Shawshank Redemption.
Inglourious Bastards.
You took my answer, you son of a bitch.
Now you have to pick a different one.
Okay, since nobody decided to go like full comedy, I'll go Zombieland.
Good. And Zombieland 2 is coming out? How's it coming out?
It's out. It was not disappointing, which is rare for a sequel that far behind, because it's like, it's not going to be as good as the first one. It's got no chance. You hope it just doesn't like crush your soul. I liked it. Obviously not as much as the original, but I enjoyed it.
Favorite musical artist?
It depends. Ask me any given week. Right now, I'll go with. Right now I'll go with Paris. I tend to gravitate to a lot, so I'll stick with that.
I
haven't listened to music in so long. Actually, I've just been podcasting, listening to podcasts.
I've been listening to a lot of Run the Jewels lately. Again, like Brad, it switches a lot. Favorite current Red Wing?
Pass.
Again, ask me any week. I'll go Mantha.
Yeah, Larkin. Yeah, I'll go Larkin.
Tyler Bertuzzi, I'll go for.
And do you eat asparagus?
Yes, wrapped in prosciutto.
Yeah, big fan of asparagus.
I'll just eat it straight up.
Oh, he said you likes it, but you really got to clean it before you dig in. Awesome interview, by the way, guys. Thanks.
Yeah.
Flip Dezina says, "Howdy, fellas. One of the 4 hockey fans in Indiana here. Been listening for a couple years now and figured it's time to support you guys." I appreciate it, Flip. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast family. Says, "I went back and listened to the first episode I heard from you guys, which is the 2018 draft review. It was awesome seeing the whole Red Wings community be so excited about Zadina at 6. Can't wait for October 6th when Stützle drops to 4 and we see what happens again. Thanks for everything." Well, here's to hoping you're right, but no matter what, we'll have that level of excitement. We'll have at least a cider level of excitement about whoever it gets picked 4th. The Darren Helms Stan Club says, "I'm sober-ish now again. The sulking as a result of the lottery is clearing. Remember, we got a couple decent players in the 6th and 7th round before, and of course in the 5th round, we got an ace, absolute beaut, Darren Helm. I doubt we can get anyone of that talent in the late rounds again, but faith be the Yzer plan. I'm sure as we wait so patiently for the draft, you will discuss later rounds, but for now, any favorite late round gems?"
Generally, when we're talking about late round picks, you gravitate towards guys you've watched a lot who could fill a role. So obviously, we've watched a ton of the Kitchener Rangers lately. They got 3 guys who are probably going to go in the 5th to 7th round. The guy I keep my eye on is Declan McDonald. Because he came over, he was 17 this year, but it was his first year in the OHL because he stayed in minor hockey in the States for an extra year. Hell of a shot, works his ass off. Not going to ever be a top 6, probably not even a top 9 guy in the NHL, but I could see with good development him turning into like a really good role player with some offensive kick to, pop in maybe 10, 15 a year while playing a specialized role.
Alex Ott asks, which player combo would you rather have? Cider and Rossi, Cider and Raymond, or Zegras and Drysdale?
Oh, God.
Oh, wow. I hate you for that one.
So it was Cider and Rossi or Cider and Raymond?
Or Zegras and Drysdale, yeah.
Cider and Raymond.
Yeah, I'm going to go Cider and Raymond, too. I'll still go on the record as having preferred Zegras at the time, but I don't think the difference between Zegras and Cider is so big right now where I could confidently say. But then again, where I would take the drop from Raymond or Rossi to Drysdale, because in my mind I still rank both of those guys ahead of them. I'm going to agree with Brad and go Cider.
There's really no bad decision to be made there.
There's none at all. James Phoenix says, noting cap space developments today, it is clear that Yzerman will now place himself into an underground bunker to ring around every single GM to see what deals he can garnish on their bad contracts. With Arizona at $85.1 million now, according to Cap Friendly, they're obviously in a bit of a tight squeeze. They still have the Hossa contract on LTIR for another 2 years. And I wondered what you'd consider a decent return to look like if we were to take that on, or if indeed they should at all. Arizona don't have their 2020 first round pick, but they do have a 2020 second rounder and their 2021 and 2022 first round picks. If we are to increase our odds at landing Shane Wright, I just hope the Wings can take full advantage of what would be a massive opportunity for them. And I believe Yzerman would do just that if the return is worthwhile. Cheers, lads. LTIR's contracts are a little bit more complicated. It's not so much dead weight as like a Cody Ceci contract or a Komarov contract or somewhere where the player is still playing. I think you'd be hard pressed to pry that first round pick from John Shaka. Would it be worth it? Yeah, absolutely. For a second or first round pick, you're losing the Franzen contract off LTIR. You can fill that back up, but at the same time, you're probably going to LTIR another Red Wing at some point, statistically speaking, over the next 2 seasons. So, Would I do it for a medium, like a middling return? I'm not sure. I don't know about you guys.
I'd rather save, because obviously Illich isn't going to spend infinity dollars just to take on dead contracts. I'd rather save the Illich money for a non-LTIR contract where we actually have to pay and play them, because then a team will be willing to give up more in return.
Eric O says, the gold plan is a terrible idea, and I can't believe you guys continue to peddle it like it's the remedy to all of these draft lottery woes. It might work until a team comes along and games the shit out of it to get the top pick they wanted. The best alternative plan I've personally heard is YouTube sensation The Hockey Guy's suggested plan. Stick with the top 3 picks being lottery picks. Make the lottery take into account the previous 3 seasons. Last place gets 10 points, second last gets 9 points, third last gets 8 points, etc. Highest score through 3 seasons gets top odds, etc. Significantly increase the odds for the top 3. Lock out a team from winning the top draft pick if they select first overall for 3 years. Only include 12 teams in the lottery. You want a system to prevent tanking. Well, this would eliminate it almost entirely. Obviously, it needs to be more refined than just a couple sentences worth of detail, but no team will say, oh, wow, Shane Wright looks great. Let's tank for 3 years to get him. Teams who need these players the most will get them over time. It would prevent future Oilers situations. It would severely reduce the odds of a perennial playoff team who has a bad year due to injuries or what have you from sneaking into the lottery and winning a top 3 pick. What makes you stand by the gold plan as if it's a viable option? Couldn't a GM just trade a few pieces to expedite their playoff berth elimination, then pick up a couple pending free agents at the deadline to try to go on a run before anyone else can catch up? Do you want to go first, Brad?
Yes, desperately. Okay.
I can hear you breathing.
Yeah. One, the gold plan, I did not hear a single reason in there why you're against it, for whatever that's worth. It absolutely prevents tanking, because if you game the system, I don't even know what you mean by game the system, because to get mathematically eliminated first, you have to be truly terrible. But then if you're that truly terrible, well, you're not going to win a lot of games. So in a normal year where the Red Wings aren't so dramatically bad, most of these teams are going to get mathematically eliminated relatively close to each other. Obviously with the weaker teams getting a bit of a head start. And yeah, you'll have those one-off years where like a New Jersey is terrible and whatever, but that's going to happen. I've actually come around on the winning multiple lotteries, because I was firmly against the team getting it multiple times. If you're truly that bad, I'm actually in favor of getting it a few times, because look at the Red Wings right now. And also the biggest thing is strength of draft class matters, because imagine the Red Wings are a bottom 3 team for the next 3 years. We win the draft lottery last year and get Aatu Räty, who would probably go 5th in this upcoming draft. And then because of that, we're eliminated from the Shane Wright contention. Honestly, if you told me we could get Aatu Räty, but then not even take Shane Wright, I'd ask if we could pass on the pick, truthfully. And then you factor in the 3-year plan. One, I think that would get way too complicated, but obviously there's ways of tracking that, which is fine. But teams can get bad dramatically fast, depending on how their team ages out, how many free agents they lose. Now they held up well this year, but look at what happened to Columbus last year. You're telling me that all their superstars leave, they shouldn't have a shot at a top pick this year? The NHL changes way too rapidly to do anything in 3-year intervals. So I personally don't like that idea very much at all.
Eric, what you outlined to me is actually, I think, also a really good plan. And it focuses on the issues of the draft lottery more than I think the gold plan does in terms of creating a truly fair system. And that I'll give credit to for sure. The most attractive part to me of the gold plan, outside of reducing the amount of random chance that goes into who gets the top pick, and the fact that it's any of these bullshit, 13th or 14th best odds getting it, is the fact that it makes games competitive the entire season. I love the idea of making like game 79 for a team that's well out of the playoffs important. And to me, that's an attractive thing that the NHL could do to generate a lot of interest, to create like a second tournament in the later parts of the season without formalizing a second tournament. Like that's something that they would love to do in terms of, creating a game within a game. That said, like, yeah, I understand people think it's gimmicky, and could a GM game it by tanking and then trading for pieces at the deadline? Yeah, absolutely. And then it's your job as a fan to decide whether that's something that you would appreciate as a viable strategy or something that you would think is gimmicky.
But is that even...
I personally would think that's good strategy.
Yeah, is that even gaming the system? You're giving up assets. You are essentially then trading for that pick. And if that trade works out in your favor, well, good. If right now the Red Wings traded for Louis Eriksson's contract and got Thatcher Demko, that could be classified as gaming the system, but nobody's going to view it that way.
So the plan that he outlined here, I also think is really good. I like the idea of taking a larger sample size where you're taking multiple seasons. You set like bylines, you set like barriers where teams past 12 can't win. Like, yeah, I think that's good. I would actually restrict it to 10, but that's just me. Teams can't win more than a certain number of times. I would say if you have 2 first overall picks within the last 4 years, you can't win again. Like, I like those concepts. Like that's another viable solution to me.
I don't like that at all.
I like both ideas because anything is better than what happens now. I really like the gold plan because if you're the kind of fan who doesn't think that tanking and then trying to win at the end is like crappy, then you would appreciate it. Although if you don't like it, then I completely understand that as well. I'm just of the mind that, yeah, like Brad mentioned, if you're going to strategically try to, tank and then give up assets to get better later in the season, that's a risk you're going to take. Because then if you lose, you just gave up assets and then you lost out. But I don't know. At the very least, what needs to happen is the odds for the first, second, and third pick need to dramatically increase for the worst teams. I think teams shouldn't be winning it more than a few times. But anyways,
if the NHL is dead set on having lotteries, go for maximum entertainment, maximum value, and actual fairness. 3 lotteries.
RC Tendy says, how NHL ready are guys like Raymond, Rossi, Perfetti, Stützle, and Drysdale? Who would have the best chance at playing next season if the Wings drafted? I would say Stützle and Rossi would have the best chance of playing next year.
Not counting Byfield and Lafreniere, yeah, those would be the 2.
Yeah. Even then, Rossi, it really depends. Like, I could very easily see that not working out. Stützle, because he plays against men in the DEL right now. Drysdale, you don't want to hang a defenseman out there to dry.
It's going to be a bloodbath next year.
Yeah.
Don't need to do that to him.
Darren Helm, Stan Club Stan says, good day, duds. With USA having their COVID per 60 off the charts and continuing to put up video game numbers every day, we're staring down a reality where the league has to seriously consider how they start the 2020-2021 season. Gloomy part done. Okay, only like 90 more days until the draft, which is a heckin' Tuesday night or Wednesday morning on my side of the flat earth. Wonderful. Oh well, plenty of time to second guess prospect analysis and deal with the Euro League starting up and potentially throwing the cat amongst the pigeons for those draft eligible guys. Biggest potential Euro riser, just guess. Golf guy, wake up mate, pay attention. Tiger Woods, driver, heater. Okay, he's back, go. Biggest potential riser out of the European draft picks.
Lucas Raymond. Easy. I mean, I think...
What's he going to rise? Like 1 spot?
I think if he gets into a top 6 role for London next year, he will put up huge numbers and people will start talking about him at 2.
I genuinely believe that as well. I think that is going to happen after we come to terms with the fact that not only is Raymond probably the best pick for Detroit at 4, but he's maybe even a better pick than Stützle at 3. Like that. I'm not saying that's what I think necessarily right now, but that's just how it's all going to shake out. And then hockey's going to start in Europe, and then he's going to absolutely crush it with, like you said, bigger ice time. And then teams are going to be like, ooh, this guy is a cheat code. We're drafting him.
It could also go the other way for Raymond as well, because from all accounts, Ferland is still supposed to be very good. So he might still play 9 minutes a game.
And then does that make you think? Anyways, Alex Holtz to me is another guy who has the potential to rise quite a bit. And then Yaroslav Askarov as well. I think if he starts off hot, you see a team do something, I won't say stupid, but interesting. Jersey time. Best IHL jersey of all time that isn't the Vipers. There can only be one. Choose wisely.
I'd be lying if I said I could remember another IHL team at this point.
I'm having a hard time remembering a lot of them, but it's got to be the Orlando Solar Bears, right?
I think I vaguely remember a team called the Roadrunners that wasn't too bad, but I don't remember shit.
Orlando Solar Bears was one. Utah Grizzlies was one. The Solar Bears had a few jerseys, but I remember one like really gaudy one with like a massive polar bear with like sunglasses, I believe.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, that one.
I thought that was ECHL, but no, if that was IHL, that's the winner.
Was that ECHL or IHL? Anyways, and then there's. Let me look this up.
There's some good jerseys.
LA Ice Dogs, that's what it is. Yeah, they have a cool one with like paws on the sleeves. It's gaudy as hell. That's what I got. If it's not the Solar Bears, then it's the Ice Dogs. Remember when it's the middle of a pandemic to use organic, ethically sourced Stay Fresh cheese bags to cover your face, to protect you and your fellow humans. Stay Fresh cheese bags, a Fournier company committed to fighting COVID-19. Steve E asks, will any Red Wings aside from Larkin make it an Olympic roster? Hronek, maybe? Larkin, Hronek, Sider.
Hronek. I would think Hronek, Zadina, and Sider would be damn near locks because those are not deep hockey countries.
Zadina, Mantha, I think, has an outside shot of Team Canada, depending on how he does.
I was just gonna say that. Beyond that, no. Those are the only options. Well, whoever they take at fourth, if they take Stützle, he's definitely going. And Rossi too won't be there because I don't think Austria qualified.
Dylan Krill says, hey guys, if you could go to your dream concert, who would be the two opening acts and who would be the headliner? Artist or group, dead or alive? Thanks.
Oh man, well we gotta go. God,
well, Run the Jewels, Rage Against the Machine was going to be a show, so I'm pretty pissed that's not happening.
Oh, that would have been good. Like, for me, Linkin Park would have to be the headliner just because they're like, I've been listening to them for so long, and to see how they're doing their shows now is so cool. Because, like, God, I've been listening to Linkin Park for like 21 years. That feels weird to say.
I've seen Kendrick Lamar before. I thought he was an amazing live.
And then I'd probably just pick two of my shitty indie bands that I listen to open.
You guys aren't going to like this. I know I'm going to get made fun of for it, but I'd kill to see the Beatles live. But not with, like, the screaming. I heard they were shit live, too, but, like, I don't know.
You got to see the Beatles, I guess.
Yeah. Yako Ruta says, well, hello there. Let us play the future fan favorite. Should the Red Wings acquire this overpaid player? This week we'll look at some players. I'll give you the cap hit and years remaining after this one. You say if the Red Wings should acquire this player. Alex Steen, 1 year at 5.75.
No.
Yes.
Yes, for the right price. Jake Allen, 1 year at 4.35.
Yes, that solves two problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
Andrew Ladd, 4 years at 5.5.
Good God, no.
God. Cal Clutterbuck, 2 years at 3.5.
Sure.
Would need to be a decent return.
Yeah, at 3.5, we're not likely getting a big return.
Johnny Boychuk, 2 years at $6 million.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
We're not doing much for 2 years.
I have to see the trade. Nick Leddy, 2 years at 5.5.
Yeah,
sure.
Thomas Hickey, 2 years at 2.5.
Yeah.
Fine. Louis Eriksson, 2 years at $6 million. Yeah, because that means you got something great in return.
That's probably the favorite because that will get us a big damn return.
Same vein, Brandon Sutter, 1 year at 4.375. Yeah.
I mean, the
answer to all these is for the right price.
Except for Ladd. Good God. No.
Yeah.
2 years is the most I would do. And the more money we can get. Like, Louis Eriksson makes the most money, has 2 years left, and isn't objectively good anymore. He will get the biggest return. He is the prize jewel of the bad contracts to acquire.
On that note, Kwaz says, I actually hope, I always say Kwaz, but it's Quaz. I know because it's part of his last name. It's Quaz. I actually hope we take on Louis Eriksson's contract. That would be an upgrade for this landfill Blaze and leveraging that cap space. So guys, I am now an uncle to a beautiful baby girl. Hey, congratulations, man. And here's the thing. Mom is a Pens fan. Oh.
Ew.
Sorry to hear.
Kids are impressionable. You have time.
And, well, my family ain't. Her maternal grandmother got some Penguins clothes for her. It's only natural that I get Red Wings clothes for her. Brad, any website suggestions for such things? Yeah, if you go to wingwheelpodcast.com and go to the shop page, we sell onesies. Baby
there onesies. You go. I haven't actually bought any kids' clothes online. It's all been either at the LCA or locally. I mean, I work for a company that sells this kind of stuff, so.
Last thing, flying formation through thick clouds can get sketchy fast. I did that 2 days ago, and oh boy, was it sporty. Hey man, whenever you're allowed to bring in random civilians onto your fighter jets, let us know.
No.
Yes,
No.
please. I would do that.
You wouldn't do it, Brad?
Sure.
Nope. No chance.
Come on.
Nope.
That would be
And
a great way to go.
And it's funny too, because like I'm not generally scared of speed or heights, but yet no.
So, but you are then?
Yeah, kinda, yeah.
How are you on airplanes?
Fine. Totally cool.
It's just the concept of like fighter jets, like Blue Angels, that kind of stuff. You don't like it?
Yep, exactly.
All right, we're gonna set this up. We will set it up for some point. Lauren T says, I think one of the only good things about our team situation right now is how much cap space we have. You guys have talked about how Yzerman might want to take on some bad contracts to get some extra draft picks or other incentives, but do you think it's realistic he would try and go for some free agents that might be looking for a new team? I personally love to see him take a swing for Tyson Barrie, seeing as the dude can barely catch a break in Toronto. Thoughts on that? I wasn't looking at Brad at the moment, so I'm sure he was just either shaking his head or he got distracted.
Did.
I wouldn't want any kind of long-term or high-dollar commitment to anyone, but if it's legitimately just like something like Tyson Barrie wants to go somewhere for a half-decent cap number and he can at least help this team out in terms of like giving the young guys someone half decent to play with, that's something I'm actually in favor of. Because let's be real, Tyson Barrie is not going to push this team. Like if Tyson Barrie played on these Detroit Red Wings of this past season, the Red Wings would finish 31st still. He doesn't push them over the edge. This team is a far away from viable. So that's the kind of contract where like it keeps him away from other teams that need him, which, you know, cut off the nose to spite the face. Actually, it doesn't make sense. He's a good player. As long as it's not long term, and as long as it's not like insanely high dollar where you sacrifice cap space that could have gone elsewhere, then I'm in favor. It's just the circumstances under where you would get to that would be, it's not likely. Like players don't want to go to bad teams for low money. It's just not how NHL works. Although if you ever want a crazy world ending situation where that might be the case, COVID-19 has you covered. Okay.
Going back to our fighter jet story. This is too good. There's actually a fighter jet in Waterloo that offers it.
Oh, Brad.
Take a guess how much it costs for 45 minutes.
45 minutes? You have to buy 45.
Do you know how much fuel that is?
That's $1,000.
Oh, at least. Okay, so the price to do it for 45 minutes is $3,500.
I'm happy we're poor, so you can't make me do that. And even if you tried to, even if you paid it, I still wouldn't do it.
Even if Evan and I both paid $1,750 of our own money, you wouldn't do it.
No.
I'm mad that you got that sweet.
Someone's gonna do a Kickstarter, GoFundMe for this.
I'll take the money and spend it on booze.
Birthday boy Trev says, what's the most Canadian thing you guys have ever done? Any moments where you stopped yourself and realized how much of a cliche you were being?
Passed out drunk in a snowbank while playing pond hockey.
Drove up north to get a canoe for camping and saw a moose on the drive home.
That's easily the most Canadian thing.
Yeah. And basically whenever you go camp, whether you're like a hardcore, like interior Canadian, like when you go camping, it all comes out of you. Like I'm from Windsor. I'm closer to Detroit, Michigan than any other Canadian city. My accent was more like neutral American Michigan than it was like Northern Canadian. I only really picked up like the aboot and the heavy Canadian stuff when I moved further up. But yeah, when I go camping, it's like straight up opening beers with my teeth, flannel shirts, saying, oh yeah, bud, like stuff like that. It's not good. Jake Nagy says, if each of the top draft candidates for the Wings was a pizza, what pizza would they be? For example, Rossi is a small but artisan pie that experts are obsessed with, but casual pizza fans say too big of a price for something small. That's actually really good. That's
no one wants to pay more for the wood-fired pizza.
How about Perfetti, Raymond, or Drysdale? Perfetti is... And I'm not saying this because I'm not saying I don't like Perfetti, but Perfetti is a pizza that's objectively good with just like a non-traditional sauce. It's like a white sauce pizza with like, I'll say it, grilled chicken, some spinach, some onions, Just so Brad.
I don't understand that reference at all.
I was going to say perfetti is the pizza with pineapple because depending who you talk to, they either love it or hate it. Not many people fall in the middle.
I was going to put Drysdale as pineapple.
No, who doesn't like Drysdale? It's just a matter of, is he that high on our list? He's the pepperoni pizza. Everybody objectively likes him, but to varying degrees.
Yeah, and then you say, do you take the pepperoni pizza over the like artisan margarita that you have here with Rossi? Yeah, no, I agree. What about Raymond?
Raymond is the deluxe pizza. It's got all the toppings, but when everything has all the toppings, it means that there's probably going to be onions on there. So some people will hate it.
No, it's all the toppings. But if you're getting any kind of deluxe or loaded pizza, it lives and dies by the quality of the pizza place you're getting it from. If they have shit ingredients, they make a shit pizza, then you just got more garbage. But if they have good ingredients and you get the nice bacon that like crisps up a little bit and you got like fresh mushrooms, not like the canned garbage, like, oh, that's when you get into the good stuff. Good question. Cameron Mugford, who I believe is a new patron. Yeah, he is. Welcome to the Dub family, Cameron. Says, longtime listener, first-time Patreon subscriber. I had to support the show because you guys provide awesome Red Wings content in a not-so-awesome time to be a Wings fan, though things are looking up, I hope. For this upcoming draft, is there any logic to the Red Wings taking Askarov at 4? With no clear goalie coming up at the position, and it's so weak for them, or if 4 is too rich for a goalie, do you see any chance they trade down to 8 or 9 to pick up an additional asset and Askarov? I view the second option as way more likely than the first.
So I'm going to get two things because we're going to get this question, I know, 900 times between now, a million trade down scenarios. Short of getting next year's first round pick from a bad team, I don't think there's a trade down scenario that Yzerman's going to entertain. There is logic in getting Askarov, but not at 4. Because as teams are proving now and time again, you can get pretty good goalies cheap and stack the rest of your roster and be fine. The teams that generally tend to pay $10 million for an elite goalie don't do well. Not a great idea. So in the same breath, you don't invest a high value asset like a 4th overall pick on a goalie, no matter how good that goalie is. Because I'm not saying Askarov's not good, but no, that's not something I'm a fan of doing.
So last year there was an invisible cutoff after Alex Turcotte, who went 5th, right before Detroit drafted 6th overall. I would have still ranked Zegras high enough to make it worthwhile for the Red Wings to take him instead of exploring trading down, but they obviously didn't think as highly of him or any of the other players available. So what they did was try to trade down because they said if we don't get, players 1 through 4, even if they ranked Turcotte up there, then they knew they wanted Moritz Seider. So they tried to trade down, ended up not being able to, like Moritz more than anyone else, Zegras included, and took him. So draft capital or value versus your capital, was it the best deal? No, but at the end of the day, you want to pick your guy. And you have to respect your GM who stands by that. This draft, I don't think is composed the same way. I think you have to go much further down before you get to that, like Alex Turcotte invisible cutoff. Raymond, Rossi, Drysdale, all of these guys are well within that range in my mind where I don't view it as likely as for Yzerman to trade down. But you never know. If they're in love with Askarov and they think he's going to be the next Dom, yeah. Jeremy Dahl says, okay, Brad, I love you, but pronouncing trebuchet the way you did was one of the dumber things you've said on this podcast.
I forgot about that.
You're no, I haven't. Such a pretty face. Sorry. I'm just bitter we lost the draft lottery and fell down the most slots we possibly could. Oh my God, we lost the draft lottery again. The only thing easing the pain is my Red Wings anonymous self-help group in the Winged Wheel podcast. Sigh, I even start to see this rad new girl. Can't call her my girlfriend yet. Hope too soon. And she is Christian AF. So I got to pray all week leading up we would win first overall. She was a great sport, but God in his infinite wisdom decided that 4th overall is much better. So this is divine intervention, fellas. Anyways, thanks for the joy I get twice a week from your shows. You are fun and clever and wonderful and really, really good at this. I listen to a lot of podcasts and you are no slouches. Definitely make it feel like listening to a bunch of friends talk, just shoot the shit. So thank you. Jeremy, that means a lot. And thank you so much for opening by making fun of Brad. Michael Barry says, Ryan, what do you think of Brad's take that if we should trade for Louis Eriksson, we should get Thatcher Demko? Personally, I think goalies are way too risky, especially at the prospect level, and would rather trade for their first round pick either next year or year after. I'm happy with any scenario. I think Demko has shown enough in my mind where it's less of a risk. And And with Demko, you don't have to spend draft capital to try and pick up a goalie. You have someone who, how old is Thatcher Demko?
23-ish, I think. He's not.
So he's not hitting his peak for probably until the Red Wings come out of their rebuild. So it lines up well. Cap space is a valuable weapon, and I'm not saying it wouldn't be better used to get first round picks, but if you can squeeze Thatcher Demko, use your cap space to weaponize that, and then not have to spend any draft capital to draft your next goalie, there's risk. For sure there's risk. Demko could be a dud. But at the end of the day, you lost cap space, and that's not going to hurt your franchise. Essentially, you lose opportunity cost. Is it risk-free? No, of course not. But at the same time, I would agree with Brad's take that it would be well worthwhile. Would I prefer a 2022 first-round pick? Yeah. But how good is that pick going to be? Because Vancouver is front-loading. They're essentially doing what Detroit was doing in like 2012, 2013. Although maybe not, because they're landing a lot of high-end young talent. So
all their key pieces are under the age of 25. I'm not betting on Vancouver getting bad.
Joseph Fournier says, choo-choo all aboard the Jamie Drysdale train, charging like a Clydesdale, ringing up a fire sale. Please don't open my mail. Give it up for Drysdale. By the way, when people said they wanted Detroit to win the lottery so they could send Zadina and Mantha to the podium to announce Lafreniere as the pick, that was the moment the universe decided Montreal was winning the draft lottery and Detroit was picking fourth. Interesting take on Hockey Central. LA mate rake Stützle over Byfield given their style of play. Tinfoil hat theory. If Ottawa wants a forward and a defenseman at 3 and 5 and thinks Detroit would take Drysdale at 4 and bets on their local darling Rossi dropping to 5, then they could take Drysdale at 3, freeing up Eisman to select Byfield at 4 if the LA Stützle scenario plays out. But who knows? Anything could happen. Either way, are really good players coming to Detroit. Stay fresh, cheese bags. If Byfield goes 4th and Detroit drafts him, I will jump out of the window. I'll bring that to the table.
Okay.
Without a doubt. C-Nods says, where would you place Hronek in the draft looking back at it? He was a second rounder, is looking like a solid puck mover, smooth skater, and all-around top 4, eating a ton of minutes for Detroit. I would guess a mid-first rounder. I'm a big fan of his game, and when he was on the ice, had just the slightest bit more confidence than any other defenseman this year. Oh, that's not saying much. Also, let's say we pick Drysdale and he pans out. Is Hronek, he pans out as Hronek, you could see on the move since his value is high right now in the near future. He's asking if they draft Drysdale and he pans out, could Hronek be on the move? So where would Hronek go in a redraft, and could he be traded?
So in a redraft, I mean, just pulling up Hockey DB here, Hronek is top 20 in scoring for that draft, like total, not top 20 defensive. So when you get a defenseman that high on that list this shortly, he's probably a top 15 pick. Honestly,
you take him over Tyson Jost. You take him over Chychrun, right?
You could make the case. Yeah, Chychrun's played double the games Hronek has, and Hronek's only 26 points behind him. So I think, you probably draft him over, just looking at the people who have more, maybe Jesper Bratt, Chychrun, Jost. So he's probably around 15 in a redraft.
Yeah.
Chychrun's only had the highest point total he's had is 26 in a season, and Hronek's already had 31.
And remember, the pick we got Hronek with was the sweetener that we got to get Chychrun. We still got Cholowski out of that trade.
Yeah. They're not the same style of player, but Hronek is not a second round pick. And a lot of teams are looking at Hronek the same way they're looking at Larkin, which is envious of Detroit with the value they got for the pick. So, you'd be mad that Datsuk's legacy is ruined or whatever, but for different reasons. But that was a great deal that Ken Holland made. One of his, that's one of the hallmark deals that you throw in the face of people like me who say that he wasn't a good GM down the line, towards the latter stages of his career. All right. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Wind Wheel podcast. We'll be back with you on Sunday. Hopefully by then we have a solid CBA to talk to you about. We'll be doing a little bit more intentional stuff with our prospect profiles. We'll be doing more salary cap things. Evan's going to do a handstand, and Brad is going to speak entirely in Yiddish. So looking forward to that. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for supporting the show. Our patrons, our name level sponsors, the septic tank of that bitch, Carol Baskins. Greach, Jeremiah Adobo, Jake Kiefer, Arjun Shanker, Drunky the Dwarf, Brad Smith, Andrew Bohan, Scott Martin, Jacob Turner, Matt McKay, Brandon M., Matthew M. Rice, Luke Johnson, Clayton Van Dyken, Kalen Wood, Hassam Al-Qassem, Charlie Elkins, Hannah Lee, Birthday Boy Trev, Chris Ripley, Alex Ott, Ashley Van Conant, Chris Frank, Connor Leighton, Danny Jr., Matthew Keeler, Simon Anderson, Antonio Gracias, John Evans, K-Waz, and Stan Olson. Thank you all. I have to go teach Brad Yiddish.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.